Hello everyone, I'm Ricky Levant, author of the book Repeat Offender. There are 3 short stories that are connected to this book and are free. In this video I'll be reading the short story Strike Zone. For more on Repeat Offender or to read the other short stories and free chapters, click on the links in the description below. Thanks for your support and enjoy. Strike Zone, a Repeat Offender short story. Pedro Fuentes settled his nerves and took a deep breath. He was on one of his better streaks and was thrilled to have some bragging rights over his friends. Crashing pins, children laughter, rolling balls, and a few old televisions permeated the atmosphere of the bowling alley. He was calm after starting poorly in the first bowling match. It was unusual for him to have 4 open frames to start a game. After Pedro settled down, cracked his neck, relaxed his shoulders, he got his stroke again and dominated the pins. "See what you can do, Pedro," Arnold shouted. Pedro smirked while the other 2 guys with him chuckled. Pedro knew that Arnold was trying to get him off his game. One more strike in the final round and he and his partner would tie their opponents at 1 game apiece. One more deep breath and Pedro rolled his strike ball, tidal wave. The blue and silver swirled strike balls whirled down at 18 miles per hour and crashed into the pins. 9 fell immediately, but 1 was almost hesitant until it fell. John and Pedro cheered and pointed mockingly at Arnold and Antonio. Pedro started bowling with his friends sporadically after being laid off from Gordon Herschel, a company that handled reservations for hotel chains from 1 star to 5. Bowling was a sport he loved as a teen, but allowed work and school to interfere with playing. During the time off, he picked it up again and started bowling with his friends from college and church. All 4 guys were married and none told their wives about the guys' night. To them, they wanted privacy. This was their moment to relax and get away. They desired to enjoy themselves and bowl. "Take that, Double A," Pedro said. Double A referred to Arnold and Antonio, who frequently teamed up to go against Pedro and John. They were not related, but both men had a Mediterranean look, so most people assumed they were at least cousins. "All tied up. Good for you," Antonio sneered. "We'll see this next game." "Anyone up for another round?" Arnold said while walking to the bar. "Not for me," Pedro answered. "Worried it'll affect your game?" Arnold said. "I'm buying." "Affect my game?" Pedro said mockingly. "You know it relaxes me." "All the more reason for you to get a beer," John stated. "Go ahead and bring back a bucket." Arnold nodded and headed into the bar. The bowling alley was running a special on reduced prices for a bucket of 5 beers. Each person had 1 and the buyer would get the extra. There were leagues further down in the alley, but the 4 men loved coming there at least once a month, sometimes twice. All 4 guys had 2 balls. None were professional, but John had an opportunity to get into the PBA. Some personal issues and not fully believing in his ability halted that opportunity to become a professional bowler. The top ball was for strikes, the other for spares. The strike ball had a nice curve when rolled to hit the sweet spot right to the side of the head pin. The spare ball was better for going straight to clear the remaining pins left behind. Pedro was cleaning his white and heather gray mixed spare ball when a familiar perfume caressed his nose. He sniffed a few times and looked around. "Maria?" Pedro said to his wife. He had his arms open and a smile to match. "Don't Maria me," she said. "I thought you were going over to the budget and making sure you can hire new people." Pedro got a new job working with a temp agency as a manager. He worked his way up to supervise 2 offices. The temporary agency was called upon to fill 50 jobs for a regional insurance company, and Maria assumed this was taking all of Pedro's time. Antonio was impressed by Maria's figure. She wore deep blue skinny jeans that hugged her petite and curvaceous figure. A light jacket hid her lavender satin top. Antonio checked her out and then glanced at Pedro. Like Pedro, he felt weird because his wife thought he was at the office. "Stop checking me out, Antonio," Maria snapped. "I can feel your eyes on me." "I didn't do..." Antonio started. Sorry. Does your wife know you're here? Maria asked. Antonio shook his head. Maria pointed to John and he did the same as Antonio. Arnold was returning with a bucket of beer when he saw Maria standing by Pedro. Maria looked around to see Arnold with a bucket of beer in one hand. I'm just here to get beer, Arnold said. Unbelievable, Maria said. We're a team, a family. I just want to come to a place without having to explain myself. It's bowling. You think I'm so mean that I wouldn't understand you coming to bowl, Maria said. Do you know me? Pedro dropped his head. His bowling friends mirrored the same look. They all could see Pedro and Maria spat but felt the same in their lives. Antonio felt so bad that he began to text his wife to let her know where he was. We'll talk later, Maria said. I'm not going to put my business in public, so enjoy your game, she snarled. Maria, I'm sorry, I promise, Pedro began but stopped when she walked away. Maria had tears in her eyes and rushed to the door. She was far enough away so Pedro couldn't see her tears. Itzel Watkins, ex-employee of Pedro, walked in and met Maria's eyes in the foyer. You okay? You were right. He was here, Maria said. I'll be there tomorrow. Itzel paused for a moment then said, Oh, the rally. Yep, she responded. He nodded and she left the bowling alley. Itzel smiled a little and continued to walk into the building. Itzel had known that Pedro came in the bowling alley often, and through his conversation with Maria at his rallies, assumed she didn't know about him going out. To Maria, it wasn't where he was, but that he was leaving without her knowledge and lying about it. She felt like if he could keep this secret, as mundane as this was, then what else could he be hiding? Itzel worked for Gordon Herschel. He was laid off with Pedro and his best friend Henry Hall. The company moved the jobs to Korea, and ever since then he held rallies to protest their existence in another country. Itzel's main idea was to get people to boycott hotels that continued to use Gordon Herschel's services. Maria had showed up twice before, but he felt great to know that she would be there to support. The league bowlers were leaving, so this allowed Itzel to get an alley to himself. He surveyed the area and noticed a lane not that far from Pedro and his friends that was open. To his surprise, they kept bowling and took in one of the bucket of beer deals. They may not have been jovial, but they were still playing. Itzel was not a good bowler, but figured since he was there, he might as well have fun and mess with Pedro. You're still here, Itzel said, while getting the neon orange house ball to the rack. Pedro was shocked to see Itzel but nodded. You know him? Antonio asked Pedro. Yeah, Pedro said. Hey, Itzel. Pedro sipped on his beer. He got up to bowl and took his focus off Itzel. He sighed and rode tidal wave. Strike! It was the fifth one in a row. John cheered him on and Double A were impressed. I saw Maria when I came in, Itzel remarked. Yeah, she was here, Pedro said. Itzel bowled the neon color orange ball and hit 3 pins. Almost, Itzel said to himself. Another frame passed when neither Itzel nor Pedro communicated. Itzel was amazed that after what he assumed had to be an argument between Pedro and Maria, that his ex-boss was having an amazing game. However, Itzel didn't come over to clean the dust from the gutters and his house ball or admire Pedro's game. He wanted to have fun. Pedro had just bowled his 7th strike in a row when Itzel said, When are you coming to their rally? Let it go, Pedro. They left. That's what happens. Itzel said. My wife left me due to that. Is that what happens? Pedro sighed. I don't know. Sorry to hear that. Is he bothering you? Arnold said after picking up a 3-pin spare. You gonna do something about it? Itzel replied. He's harmless, Pedro said and put his arm out to stop Arnold from getting into a potential fight. Itzel, what do you want? I'm just bowling, Itzel responded. Pedro got up to bowl his 8th frame. Wanna know what's funny? Itzel said to Antonio. Itzel didn't know the man but wasn't going to be rude and yell to Pedro while he was bowling. Itzel knew Pedro could still hear him. Antonio didn't respond. Wives are like businesses. Pedro bowled and got his 8th strike. Sometimes they leave unexpectedly. What you saying, man? John asked. He was tired of Itzel, who was laughing loudly. It happens. That's life, Itzel said. Especially when secrets are involved. Pedro snapped his head and got a little close to Itzel. He wasn't as big or tall as his former employee, but was fearless. Tired of your crap. You got your position because of me. Don't forget that. Itzel put his hands up and stepped away. He walked to his ball and hit 4 more pins. Pedro assumed it was over. When it was his turn, he cracked his neck and got back up to bowl again. Some of the people around began paying attention to the fact that they could see a perfect game. Amazing, Itzel started. Never seen a man bowl the perfect game while his wife leaves in tears. Double A and John glared at Itzel. Pedro sighed and bowled. Strike! Pedro was going to say something but sat down. That was low, man, Arnold said. He was visibly upset. With one more frame, Minnie couldn't believe what was going on. I wonder if she knew about your secret, if she would have cried harder. Itzel responded and stared at Pedro. Enough! Pedro yelled. He jumped at Itzel and grabbed his shirt. What do you want? Pedro yelled. Get off me, Itzel shouted. Itzel shoved his attacker and Pedro punched back. Pedro's friends and people standing around pulled the 2 men away as the fight continued. The bowling manager came in the fracas and looked at Itzel. I don't know you, sir, but you have to leave. I have every right to be here, Itzel called out. Not if you're causing trouble. I could press charges. Itzel looked at Pedro, then at the manager. I'll leave, Itzel stated. Good luck, Pedro. There was no shred of sincerity in his words. Pedro didn't respond. He just watched his former employee grab his jacket and head around the corner to leave the bowling alley. The audience cheered and Pedro went back to shaking off the thoughts of Itzel. After his friends bowled, he was up again. He tried not to think about it, realizing that it would blow his chances. He sighed and didn't look at the score. Between his multiple strikes and John's high score, they had already clinched the win. Even Double A was rooting for him to get 3 more strikes for the proverbial perfect game. It took less than 5 minutes total, but Pedro bowled. Strike, strike, strike. The audience roared and cheered with each strike. Pedro knew that waiting for him at home was trouble and an argument. However, for that moment, he was somebody. He would have his picture in a gold frame on the wall with the 2 other guys who performed the same feat in that bowling alley. He would be immortalized. Despite the pain he caused his wife and confrontation with Itzel, Pedro bowled the perfect game.